Hi everybody, welcome back to another episode of Oh Bitch! Here we are again. I am Zach.
I am Danielle.
And today we're going to be talking about Pride, which is why Danielle's wearing this really fun shirt from her grandma. I love it. I love that grandma gave you that shirt.
I love it. I'm going to call it vintage.
So, yeah, y'all, we recognize June as official Pride Month. It's a really, really exciting time. It's a great time for people like me who are part of the queer community for visibility, for understanding, for education, for celebration. So many wonderful things. This episode is going to be just the two of us talking about Pride, what it means to us, both having varying experiences, of course, and things that maybe y'all can keep in mind as you navigate Pride Month this year and in the future as well. So are we ready to go?
I'm ready.
Yay! Let's dive in. Let's get to it. All right. So Pride. It means a lot to me, and I'll go on a tangent later. But I know for you, Danielle, you are a straight person. Mm-hmm. That does not mean at all that Pride cannot mean something to you. What does Pride mean to you?
For me, Pride is freedom for all of the queer community. It just means appreciation. It means showing out. It means, really standing by the whole LGBTQIA.
Yes.
It is.
And then you could add a plus on that for other letters.
Other letters.
Every year we add a new fucking letter.
Every year. But for me, it just really, it means that this month, and honestly, I love saying, yes, June is Pride Month, but I support the community like crazy. Obviously, one of my besties is in the queer community. And I just feel like it shouldn't just be for the month of June. It should be all year round.
Damn straight. Pride is every day, baby.
Pride is every day, baby. So for me, it just means showing out, showing up. For your friends, for your family, for the community, being there, supporting, helping, really raise awareness, and also just being a part of that freedom. Like, it's very important for the entire queer community to feel accepted, feel wanted, feel loved, feel appreciated. And if you as a
queer
bi
person.
or non-queer person, it's important to be able to stand up with those who are, and show your support.
I love that.
Thanks.
That's beautiful.
Thanks, babe.
Pride means so many things to me. And it was because, for example, growing up, did Pride exist? Absolutely. But it's on a much larger scale than it is. English. It's on a much larger scale now than it was when I was growing up.
Oh, yeah.
And Pride is such a multifaceted thing to me because it took me a while to get there, obviously. Like, growing up, being from a small town and having a very specific experience linked to growing up in a small town, Pride was something that I really had to learn and kind of earn for myself. I didn't always feel this confident in who I was. I didn't always embrace myself in my fullness. And that's kind of where Pride lives for me nowadays, it's another month where I just get to really live in my fullness and then also offer people education and offer people things about Pride and about queer folk that they don't necessarily know. The thing as well is that Pride is becoming such a big thing now that rainbow washing exists.
Also, sorry, I do want to say, when you bring up rainbow washing, as a business owner, I actually had this conversation a few days ago with my sister.
Yeah.
Because I was telling her, I'm like, I really want to do something special for Pride Month, and, I really want to show my appreciation. And she's like, Danielle, backstep for a second, because you don't want to be one of those brands that are like, I'm going to do, so many brands are doing like, the whole month of June, we're doing a discount and blah, blah. And she's like, it's great. You're showing support to some extent, but then at the same time, that discount, you're still feeding your business and yourself for that money. So you're really actually using the fact that it's Pride to promote your business. And she's like, that's not.
That is quite literally, Danielle, what rainbow washing is.
Yeah, and she's like, that's not what you want to do. So I had to take a stand back, and I'm like, that's not what I want my brand to be focused on. So if you are a business owner, make sure you are really looking at how to properly support the community, even I wanted to create like a product that was just for Pride, and she's like, but still that's the same thing. She's like, you want to show your support, bring more, the queer community into your photos and really show them that way. So if you have a business and, you're really trying to capitalize on, you're a huge supporter of the Pride community, take a step back and think about how to properly do it, because it's a very touchy subject for some people. Mm-hmm. Zach can even tell you in the beginning, I was very nervous to do this episode.
Yeah.
I was very nervous to do this episode because I'm going to be 100% honest. I am not 100% educated in the queer community. I'm not. There are still some things that I say, and it's very hard. And when I say things that I say, I mean not saying proper pronouns, or a lot of people nowadays they request and they like to be called they
yeah.
Or it's just, for me, I still need to grasp that. And I remember in the beginning of us doing our videos, I was like,
one of the things that I used to clock you on was Danielle says the word guys a lot
all the time, but I only say hey guys, what's up, all the time. It's just something, even when I used to serve, I used to be hey guys, how you doing? And I had to get myself out of that.
And that's something, again, that use this month, Danielle, to better your practice of that. Because even again, the queer community, I use the term queer. There's a lot of people who'd say the gay community. I've shifted to saying the queer community largely because it's more inclusive, and queer is a really good umbrella term to encompass everybody within the community. I also have just tried my best to transfer my language. And again, it's just a shift within your conditioning.
It is.
I always try to condition my language to be completely gender neutral and completely inclusive of everybody. So you'll hear me say y'all a lot. You'll hear me call everybody hey friend a lot, because it's just I'm not actively assuming gender, which is a really important thing to keep in mind. And within Pride Month, that's something that we can educate you on.
Yeah.
What you were saying earlier, so rainbow washing, for those of you who don't know, are basically, whether it's a small business or a large corporation, it doesn't matter. When any certain body that accumulates money uses the mandate and the mission of Pride in order to generate sales and build their capital. You'll notice that a lot of big box companies will tend to do that this month, where they'll shift their logo. For example, AT&T come to mind. Home Depot comes to mind. Even Vaseline. I saw this on Instagram and I saw it in the stores myself, that fucking Vaseline will charge for the exact same bottle of fucking petroleum jelly, but put a rainbow on it and charge $1 more. And then you have to question, like you said, where is that dollar? Why am I being charged $1 more? And where is that money going? Is this product supporting somebody in the queer community? Is this product, are their proceeds going to a charity? Which again, you have to be mindful of, because charity, appealing to charity, donating to charities also appeals to businesses, because then they get tax receipts.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So that was the other thing. So it's
is it actually because you care, or do you want the tax receipt?
Exactly. When I was talking to my sister too, I told her, I was well, what if I do a little donation? Because I'm all about supporting charities and, donating. I really want to start incorporating that with my business. But she was well, you need to be careful there, because she's okay, are you going to do 100% proceeds go to that? Or are you going to do just partial? Partial. And she's everything, you have to be mindful. But even when you came in the other day, Zach went crazy. You were just going off on Home Depot. You were oh, so now I can talk about Home Depot.
Yeah, because it's just, that's the thing about rainbow washing, that it's so monstrative and it's so malicious. And you could tell that it's only meant to incur profit, because I'm sorry, let's take Home Depot as a hot example, shall we? Hi, Home Depot. My name's Zach. I'm a queer person. Can you explain to me why it seems within your marketing design and within your business design that the proximity to people like me only seems to matter to you in June? Why do I only see the rainbows in June? What if I have to buy a door in November? I can't come in because there's no rainbows right now? AT&T. For example, big telecommunications company in the US. So if I lived in the US and I paid AT&T, are you telling me that I'm going to get Pride Month free because you put up a rainbow flag? My whole thing is, what are you doing? What is the goal? Because if the goal is to uplift and to amplify queer people, okay, then do that. Exactly in the ways that your sister kind of alluded to, Danielle, which is Bring queer people into your marketing. Have queer people visibly on your page, not just this month, but every month.
That's what I was going to say.
Communicate to me that my existence and my fullness matters 365 days of the year, not 30 days of the year, just so you can build profit. Also, again, a lot of people will start releasing merchandise. Like, for example, I identify as a non-binary person. For those of you who don't know what that means, being non-binary is a person who does not necessarily define their gender as male or female. They live in a spectrum. I choose to, like, approach gender how I create my own rules, and I approach gender in my own liminality. It does not mean anything to me because gender has been a big source of my trauma growing up. We can get into that on another episode.
Yeah.
But back to rainbow washing, what's really interesting is that people will start to like sell the flags and sell the shirts and sell all of these things. Recently, I saw shirts for non-binary people that said non-binary shirt, and then it was separated for women and for men. And I was like, that's not how this works. Respectfully, businesses, y'all are showing me that you're fucking rainbow washing to shit, because that's not how this works, and it's very clear that you don't care how this works. You just want to incur profit.
Yeah.
So be mindful of that. And then also you could be asking, hey Zach, I'll be mindful, but how do I combat that? I'll tell you. Go to your local bars. Support local drag queens. Find local queer businesses around you that you can support, because those businesses are queer 365 days of the year. I'm not a gay person who shuts myself off after the month of June. So find those businesses. Even if there's businesses that are small businesses like Danielle's, for example, inquire about that. Ask, hey, what do you do in support of these people? And see what comes out of that. You know, there's so many things that you can do to ensure that you are supporting queer people this month and putting your hard-earned money into the pockets of people who are supporting queers throughout the year and who are also building their own businesses themselves.
Also, just, you know, a little note, good food for thought. When we say support during this month, especially, but every day, 365, you don't need to do things as in like, you know, always purchasing from them or buying this or buying that. Just even doing things on your own, like when you're at home or when you're out with your friends and you're really trying to, like what I've been doing, I've been really trying to keep in mind and be mindful of my pronouns and the way that I do address people and respectfully address people. It's like, if you're just making the effort to try to use pronouns such as they, she, her, hey, you know what I mean?
Whatever, yeah.
Whoever, whatever it is, you're also showing support. It's not huge and everybody can't see it, but who cares whether people see it or not see it? It doesn't matter.
And then, well, on that point, that's such a great point. And on that exactly, I get that trying something that you don't have the fullness of knowledge about is scary.
It's very scary.
Because you don't want to hurt people. I always tell people this when it comes to issues, whether it be queer issues, whether it be anything. Don't come to me with statements. Come to me with questions. If you don't know, ask.
Yeah.
Seriously. Because we live in a world that is built on assumptions and it does damage to people. So if you don't know, like for example, you've been so beautifully open right now about how you're like, I don't know everything. I would always rather somebody come to me and say, hey, I have this thing that's been on my mind that I know I need to learn about and I don't have the information yet. Can you give me a little bit of can you offer me a little bit of help, whether that be resources or your own experience or what have you? I would always rather somebody come to me with a question and want to know the right answer than to just assume something. That could actually be very harmful.
It can.
So if you don't know, ask. And there's no shame in not knowing because, y'all, you have systemically been barred from learning this shit. And it's only taken until now for our generation and for people of our likeness and for people who want progress to actually disseminate what we don't know. Which leads me to my next point. This is Pride Month, okay? And as much as Pride Month is a beautiful time, I also want to have everybody recognize that Pride is and will always be a movement. It started as a movement, it continues to be a movement, and it will not stop as a movement until every single queer person on this planet is liberated and is allowed to live their life with free expression and free fullness. To offer you a brief history of where Pride came from.
Oh, I love that!
So the gay liberation movement is supposedly said to have begun or to have been largely incited on June 28th, 1969 with the Stonewall riots. So Stonewall is a famous bar in New York City, a famous queer bar, that on June 28th, 1969, the police raided, and it was a violent raid that ultimately resulted in queer people fighting back, and the gay liberation movement was born.
Really?
Yeah, it was a riot. So police stormed the bar, and the queer people in there fought back because enough was enough. Nobody died at Stonewall. There were people who were injured. There were people who were persecuted, but nobody passed away, thankfully. Something else to keep in mind is that there were some pretty key players in Stonewall. Some names that you need to keep in mind, too: Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera. Both of these women are two trans women of color who Marsha P. Johnson is actually theorized to have thrown the first brick at Stonewall.
Okay.
So the person who started this movement was among the marginalized of the most marginalized, if that makes sense. Sorry, let me rephrase that. Was the most marginalized of the marginalized, because she's a trans woman of color. So when you consider privilege within the queer diaspora, if I could say that, Black trans women of color are at the bottom. That is the person who incited the gay liberation movement. Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera also started this organization called STAR, which stands for Star Transvestite Action Revolutionaries. It is the first ever organization that is headed by trans people, and it's the first ever shelter for LGBTQ plus youth, as well as drag queens, as well as queer sex workers. They basically took in anybody who needed a home or who needed a dwelling.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, they did a really, really incredible stuff. Unfortunately, it fizzled out in the early 1970s because they were paying for it by doing sex work, and then unfortunately things fizzled out. Again, something else to keep in mind this Pride Month. There are people within the queer community who are more marginalized than others and who continue to be. And again, I want to put a focus on trans and non-binary people especially, because these are people who did start the movement and who received the biggest violence. In 1973, Sylvia Rivera gave a very famous speech called the "Y'all Better Quiet Down" speech. She stood on stage in front of a whole sea of basically white gay people and criticized them for basically brushing her aside, brushing Marsha aside, casting aside all of these people within their community who they were not considering and who they were not offering this liberation to, because these trans people got cast aside because all of a sudden whiteness permeated the movement and their contributions were not seen as valid.
So in the queer community, there was still racial profiling within the queer community.
And there continues to be.
That's crazy.
There continues to be. So to my queers watching this episode, we need to be critical of our community at this time. Very critical. If you've not watched this speech by Sylvia Rivera, I highly recommend watching it, or at least viewing some of the quotes.
Put that speech at the end of our video.
Yeah, I'll get a link of it and put it in the description. But it's a very powerful speech because she calls them out and does so while a whole crowd is booing her. And I was like, she's ahead of the curve more than any of y'all recognize. It's ridiculous. What I want to say, and this is, I guess, how I'll close my thoughts on this episode. Straight people, let's talk a little bit about pride. And I want you to know that I am telling you this with love. I love that straight people are involved in pride now. I love that we have allyship. I love that we have people who are going to show up for me, people who are ready to learn, people who want to take in our culture. Very excited about that because it gets us closer to progress and it gets us closer to equity and equality and all of these things that we want. Please, though, recognize that as much as you are included and encouraged to be a part of Pride, please recognize that you are there as a guest. I cannot tell you. No, I have to say that bluntly. I do have to say that bluntly. Please recognize that you are a guest that has been invited. For the past few Prides, I have seen, frankly, I'm just going to go in. I have seen straight people just doing too much. You're doing too much. Okay?
Y'all tell us how you really feel.
You're doing too much. Like, it's a wonderful time. But please, like, this is a point in time for your queer friends to, like, really live. How often do we just get to be having a celebration about being fucking gay? There are places in this world where people don't even get to do that still, and they travel to these progressive countries so that they can live here and celebrate who they are. So when you're at Pride and you're having a good kiki time, get drunk, get lit, do all of the things. Please do not upstage the queer people around you. Let them have this moment. There was one time where I was in a bar and I was busy watching a bunch of straight people make out. And a part of me thought to myself, go the fuck home and do that. If I should be watching anybody in a line make out, I need to be seeing men with men, women with women, days with days. I need to see queer people fucking sucking on each other's faces. Not y'all. So please know that, like, you are allowed to be there, but also recognize the fact that you are a guest, and if there's something that you're like, and if you're ever in a position where you think, maybe I'm taking up too much space in this moment,
just step back.
You probably are.
Just
take a step back, be a part of the joy, be a part of the celebration, but also respectfully mind your place, because this is the time for queer people to share who they are, to be who they are, to voice their opinions, to speak up, and please keep that in mind. You are allowed to be there. We love that you are with us, but also mind your place. And again, if you don't know what that means, ask questions about it. Because like I just gave you an example. Don't be in the gay club making out with your boo.
On that note, speaking of some fun, juicy things, we do have some fun, exciting little events. I can't speak today. Events that are going to be happening. But before we do so, I do want to give a little close to our Pride episode. I'm really happy that we had a chance to speak about this because, like I already said in this episode, I obviously am not 100% educated, and I'm okay now to say that. I was very nervous, especially being an owner of a business, and I want to make sure that people look at me like she knows what she's doing, whatever. It's okay not to know, and it's okay to ask questions, as much as Zach was telling us. So definitely, like we were saying, ask questions of anything, and I'm very happy that we did this.
Yay!
I'm very happy that we did. I do want to remind everybody that we are on all platforms. YouTube, if you guys want to visualize and see us. Kiki, have a good time. We're on Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify. So we're not, what's the other one? Amazon. You can also follow us on all of our social media platforms. Our main one is our Instagram. You can follow Zach at Zach Colangelo with 2 H's and BIB Cosmetics with a Z at the end for me. With that being said, I'm going to give the floor to Zach so Zach can tell you about some really juicy events that are happening specifically for Pride Month.
Yeah, y'all, I'm actually going to be performing this month, which is really, really exciting. I'm going to be performing in 2 cabarets. The first is on Thursday, June 16th at Buddies in Bad Times Theater with Everybody on Stage. This is an amazing theater company that does a lot of work to dismantle fat phobia within theater and make sure that every single body, regardless of what it looks like, gets to have its due diligence and its due representation on stage. They're an amazing company. Really excited to be performing with them. They're also going to be having a lot of really cool talent at this event. There's going to be Broadway performers. A Canada's Got Talent finalist is going to be performing at this event. I'm going to be performing at this event, and a bunch of other really cool queer folk. I'm also going to be doing another cabaret on Sunday, June 26th with Singular Sensations podcast. They are a really, really cool podcast that I've actually been on who introduce queer as well as other marginalized and non-marginalized folks from the theater industry, and we just sit and kiki and talk about things within theater. I'm going to be doing a cabaret with them on Sunday, June 26th. I'll have all of this information in the bio below. And with that, mantra. I have 3 words. Just be gay. For those of you.
I love that!
Just be gay.
Just be gay.
Are we good?
We're good.
Awesome. We'll see y'all next week. Goodbye.
Happy Pride.